Let us make sure that the stream is functioning. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Lord of the Rings episode. I don't know, something. We're on chapter 3.5. Made it halfway through this chapter because it was too long, and Treebeard's voice was too difficult for me. Well, it wasn't too difficult. It was. I did a great job. Okay, I did a great job, but it was a long chapter with a lot of Treebeard talking, and and I decided to do a deep, intense voice, and it took a lot of effort. Okay, it was difficult to keep going, challenging. It was difficult. So, yeah. So we didn't finish the chapter, but we're gonna finish it today. We're gonna finish it today for all of my adoring fans out there, numerous, endless fans. Yeah, whatever. Better not dwell on the zero viewership too much because I'm already in a bad mood and it's probably not good to make it worse. I also got tea with honey this time. Maybe that'll help. Who knows? It could be the magical secret necessary for Treebeard to be able to talk for hours and hours. Oh, there is someone here. Oh, okay. Hey there, Peachy Keen. Hey, wow. Wow. I was wrong. Wait, we've got to make sure I'm in a good positioning here. Okay. Thank you for joining. Thank you very much for joining. I appreciate you. Okay. Perhaps it is time to read now. I was playing Dungeons and Dragons earlier today, and this is what my character was. So now I'm in character mode. This is like my default speaking voice. Okay. All right. Now let's see. I think I remembered where I was. The Treebeard man shook himself off, and water fell glittering from him, red and green sparks, like a Christmas tree. Okay. Shall we begin? Yes, we shall. Yes, he strode away to the archway. Sorry, I gotta get in care. I gotta like. Sometimes starting narration is the hardest part because, like, talking in my own voice is difficult. Okay. After some time, the hobbits heard him murmuring again. He seemed to be counting on his fingers. Fangorn, Fingless, Fladriff. Aye, he sighed. The trouble is that there are so few of us left, he said, turning towards the hobbits. Only 3 remain of the first Ents that walked in the woods before the darkness. Only myself, Fangorn, and Fingless, and Fladriff. To give them their elvish names, you may call them Leaflock and Skinbark, if you liked that better. And of us 3, Leaflock and Skinbark are not much use for this business. Leaflock has grown sleepy, almost tree-ish, you might say. He has taken to standing by himself, half asleep, all through the summer, with the deep grass of meadows round his knees, covered with leafy hair he is. He used to rouse up in the winter, but of late he has been too drowsy to walk far even then. Skinbark
lived on the mountain slopes west of Isengard. That is where.
Tea with honey? Is this going to help? Let's find out. I have a feeling it's supposed to be warm, and this is not. This is cold. So, I don't know if it's going to work. Maybe next time I'll try to warm it up, but...
Ah, yes, my voice is sublime. I can feel it.
Maybe. I don't know.
He used to rouse up in the winter, but of late he has been too drowsy to walk far even then. Skinbark lived on the mountain slopes west of Isengard. That is where the worst trouble has been. He was wounded by the orcs, and many of his folk and his tree herds have been murdered and destroyed. He has gone up into the high places among the birches that he loves best, and he will not come down. Still, I dare say I could get together a fair company of our younger folks if I could make them understand the need, if I could rouse them. We are not a hasty folk. What a pity there are so few of us.
Why, are there so few when you have lived in this country for so long? Oh, I read that wrong. Why are there so few when you have lived in this country for so long? Asked Pippin. Have a great many died?
Oh, no,
said Treebeard.
None have died from inside, as you might say. Some have fallen in the evil chances of long years, of course, and more have grown tree-ish. But there were never many of us, and we have not increased. There have been no entings, no children, you would say, for a terrible long count of years. You see, we lost the Entwives.
They lost the Entwives? Oh, no. How very sad, said Pippin. How was it that they all died?
They did not die, said Treebeard. I never said died. We lost them, I said. We lost them, and we cannot find them, he sighed. I thought most folk knew that. There were songs about the hunt of the Ents, for the Entwives sung among elves and men, from Mirkwood to Gondor. They cannot be quite forgotten.
Well, I'm sorry, the songs have not come west over the mountains to the Shire, said Merry. Won't you tell us some more? Or sing us one of those songs, maybe?
Yes, I will, indeed.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay. Said Treebeard, seeming pleased with the request.
But I cannot tell it properly, only in short. Then we must end our talk. Tomorrow we have councils to call, and work to do, and maybe a journey to begin.
Oop. God, I think he's gonna be singing a song, maybe. Oh! Yeah. or yeah, there's a song, and he's listed parts for the Ent and for the Ent wife. So I have to sing as an Ent and an Ent wife. Okay, well that's gonna be fun, huh? That's gonna be a blast.
It is rather a strange and sad story,
He went on after a pause.
when the world was young, and the woods were wide and wild. The Ents and the Ent wives, there were Ent maidens then. Ah, the loveliness of Fimbrithil, of Wandlim the light-footed, in the days of our youth.
Wow, he's getting he's into these Ent wives.
They walked together, and they housed together, but our hearts did not go on growing in the same way. The Ents gave their love to things that they met in the world, and the Entwives gave their thought to other things. For the Ents loved the great trees, and the wild woods, and the slopes of the high hills, and they drank of the mountain streams, and ate only such fruit as the trees let fall in their path, and they learned of the elves, and spoke with the trees. But the Entwives gave their minds to the lesser trees, and to the meads, in the sunshine beyond the feet of the forests. They saw the sloe in the thicket, and the wild apple, and the cherry blossoming in spring, and the green herbs in the and the green herbs in the waterlands in summer, and the seeding grasses in the autumn fields. They did not desire to speak with these things, but they wished them to hear and obey what was said to them. The Entwives ordered them to grow according to their wishes, and bear leaf and fruit to their liking, for the Entwives desired order, and plenty, and peace, by which they meant that things should remain where they had set them. So the Entwives made gardens to live in, but we Ents went on wandering, and we only came to the gardens now and again. Then when the darkness came in the north, the Entwives crossed the great river, and made new gardens, and tilled new fields, and we saw them more seldom. After the darkness was overthrown, the land of the Entwives blossomed richly, and their fields were full, of corn. Many men learned the crafts of the Entwives, and honored them greatly. But we were only a legend to them, a secret held in the heart of the forest. Yet here we still are, while all the gardens of the Entwives are wasted. Men call them the Brown Lands now.
Dude, he does so much talking, which is great. Good for him. But, wow. This is, and I thought the Gandalf narration chapter was tough.
I still remember it.
Wait, no, I had it in still.
I remember it was long ago, in the time of the war between Sauron and the men of the sea. Desire came over me to see Fimrithil again. Very fair she was still in my eyes when I had last seen her, though little like the Ent maiden of old. For the Entwives were bent and browned by their labour, and their hair parched by the sun to the hue of ripe corn, and their cheeks like red apples.
Damn, dude, he's really describing these Entwives.
Yet their eyes were still the eyes of our own people. We crossed over Anduin and came to their land. But we found a desert. It was all burned and uprooted, for war had passed over it. But the Entwives were not there. Long we called, and long we searched, and we asked all the folk that we met which way the Entwives had gone. Some said they'd never seen them. Some said they had never seen them, and some said that they had seen them walking away west, and some said east, and others said south. But nowhere that we went could we find them. Our sorrow was great, yet the wild wood called, and we returned to it. For many years we used to go out every now and again and look for the Entwives, walking far and wide, and calling them by their beautiful names. But as time passed, we went more seldom, and wandered less far, and now the Entwives are only a memory for us, and our beards are long and grey. The elves made many songs concerning the search of the Ents, and some of the songs passed into the tongues of men, but we made no songs about it, being content to chant their beautiful names when we thought of the Entwives. We believe that we may meet again in a time to come, and perhaps we shall find somewhere a land where we can live together and both be content. But it is foreboded that is a sentence. It's just a confusing one. Okay. But it is foreboded that will only be when we have both lost all that we now have. And it may well be that time is drawing near at last, for if Sauron of old destroyed the gardens, the enemy today seems likely to wither all the woods. There was an elvish song that spoke of this, or at least so I understand it. It used to be sung up and down the great river. It was never an Entish song, mark you. It would have been a very long song in Entish, but we know it by heart and hum it now and again. This is how it runs in your tongue. God, here we go. I just need to take a pause. How you guys doing? How you guys doing? Having a good time? Peachy keen?
I feel like it's helping. Like, my throat feels less phlegmy, I think. Like, I think my throat is less phlegmy than it has been in the past. So maybe the honey is the tea with honey is a good call, you know. All right, so we got 2 parts here. So who's gonna sing the Entwife part? Because there's 2 parts to this song. There's 2 parts. There's the Ent part, and then there's the Entwife part, and then you just go back and forth, and then at the end, both of them sing. Yes. The lag is rough. I do understand that. I do understand that. It is unfortunate. I'm just like, how do I singing as an Ent is already hard enough as it is. How do I sing as an Entwife? You know, lighter, probably, but like also sing it. Okay.
When the spring unfolds the beechen leaf, and sap is in the bow, when light is on the wildwood stream, and wind is on the brow.
Out of tune, baby. I know it. I can't sing. No, this is an Ent. This is... Oh, yeah. No, yeah, we're not at the Entwife part yet.
When stride is long, and breath is deep, and keen the mountain air, come back to me, and say my land is fair.
Entwife. This is the Entwife part. Are you ready?
When spring is come.
That still sounds like a man. I don't know. It still sounds like a man. Like Ent woman.
When spring is come to garth and field.
Just give up on the deep like throatiness of an Ent. Just give up on that part and just be female. Like my generic female voice, because unfortunately my talent is not that great. For the female Ent. To do the female Ent.
And corn is in the blade, when blossom like a shining snow is in the orchard laid, when shower and sun.
Well, okay, but the problem is okay, the part I'm missing. The part I'm missing here is that this is Treebeard singing Treebeard singing the female part, right? This is Treebeard singing the female part. So, this should be done in Treebeard's voice. So, really, it's no different. It's no different because, okay, yeah, I overthought it. This is the Entwife part, but it's Treebeard. Okay, it's Treebeard singing this. Okay. Entwife part, yes.
When the spring is come to garth and field, and corn is in the blade.
Like, I would assume if this was written slightly more thoroughly, he would have been like,
there are 2 parts for the Ent and the Entwife.
And that would have been, he could have written that in there, but he didn't. Because Tolkien's got some interesting habits.
When blossom like a shining snow is on the orchard laid, when shower and sun upon the earth with fragrance fill the air, I'll linger here and will not come, because my land is fair. When summer lies upon the world, and in a noon of gold, beneath the roof of sleeping leaves, the dreams of trees unfold. When woodland halls are green and cool, and wind is in the west, come back to me, and say my land is best. When summer warms the hanging fruit and burns the berry brown, when straw is gold and ear is white and harvest comes to town, when honey spills and apple swells, through wind be in the the wind be in the west, I'll linger here beneath the sun, because my land is best. When winter comes, the winter wild, that hill and wood shall slay, when trees shall fall, and starless night devour the sunless day, when wind is in the deadly east, then in the bitter rain, I'll look for thee and call to thee, I'll come to thee again.
This is a romance song about Ents. What a world! What a book! You know, we got a romantic song about Ents. You know,
when winter comes and singing ends, when darkness falls at last, when broken is the barren bow and light and labor past, I'll look for thee and wait for thee until we meet again. Together we will take the road beneath the bitter rain.
and this is both of them, I guess.
Together we will take the road that leads into the west, and far away we'll find a land where both our hearts may rest.
We made it through. We made it through the song. Thank God. Thank God there were only 3 people here to witness that. Actually, one of those people is probably me. So, only 2 people. Okay. Treebeard ended his song.
That is how it goes, he said. It is elvish, of course, light-hearted, quick-worded, and soon over.
Soon.
I dare say it is fair enough, but the Ents could say more on their side if they had time. But now I'm going to stand up and take a little sleep. Where will you stand?
They want to run away together. I know. They want to run away to a land where they can both be happy. You know, how wonderful. Even trees fall in love. Actually, no. The Ents, they lost their Ent wives, so they're lonely, you know. They're a lonely people. Just like some of us real-life people. All right.
We usually lie down to sleep, said Mary. We shall be all right where we are. Lie down to sleep, said Treebeard. Why, of course you do. I was forgetting. Singing the song put me in mind of old times. Almost thought I was talking to young Entlings, I did. Well, you can lie on the bed. I am going to stand in the rain. Good night.
Stand in the rain to sleep. How beautiful. How beautiful. Merry and Pippin climbed onto the bed and curled up in the soft grass and fern. It was fresh and sweet-scented and warm. The lights died down, and the glow of the trees faded. But outside, under the arch, they could see old Treebeard standing, motionless, with his arms raised above his head. The bright stars appeared out of the sky and lit the falling water as it spilled onto his fingers and his head and dripped in hundreds of silver drops to his feet. Listening to the tinkling of the drops, the hobbits fell asleep. They woke to find a cool sun shining into the great court and onto the floor of the bay. They woke to find a cool sun shining into the great court and onto the floor of the bay. Shreds of high cloud were overhead, running on a stiff easterly wind. Treebeard was not to be seen, but while Merry and Pippin were bathing in the basin by the arch, they heard him humming and singing as he came up the path between the trees.
Ho, ho, good morning, Merry and Pippin,
he boomed when he saw them.
You sleep long, and I have been many 100 strides already today. Now we will have a drink and go to Entmoot.
He poured them out 2 full bowls from a stone jar, but from a different jar. The taste was not the same as it had been the night before. It was earthier and richer, more sustaining and food-like, so to speak, while the hobbits drank, sitting on the edge of the bed and nibbling small pieces of elf cake, more because they felt that eating was a necessary part of breakfast than because they felt hungry. Treebeard stood, humming in Elvish or Entish or some strange tongue, and looking up at the sky. "Where's Entmoot?" Pippin ventured to ask.
"Ooh, Entmoot," said the tree, turning round. "It is not a place. It is a gathering of Ents, which does not happen often nowadays. But I have mentioned to make a fair number promise to come. We shall meet in the place where we always have. Dundingle men call it. It is away south from here. We must be there before noon."
Still got a ways to go on this chapter. It is slow going. Ooh, long chapters, slow voice. Before long, they set off. Treebeard carried the hobbits in his arms, as on the previous day. At the entrance to the court, he turned to the right, stepped over the stream, and strode away southwards along the feet of great tumbled slopes where trees were scanty. Above these, the hobbits saw thickets of birch and rowan, and beyond them dark, climbing pine woods. Soon Treebeard turned a little away from the hills and plunged into deep groves, where the trees were larger, taller, and thicker than any that the hobbits had ever seen before. For a while they felt faintly the sense of stifling, which they had noticed when they first ventured into Fangorn, but it soon passed. Treebeard did not talk to them. He hummed to himself deeply and thoughtfully, but Merry and Pippin caught no proper words. It sounded like boom, boom, rum, boom, roar, boom, boom. Trying to do these words, these word sounds.
Oh, boom, boom, no, boom,
and so on, with a constant change of note and rhythm. Now and again, they thought they heard an answer, a hum or a quiver of sound that seemed to come out of the earth, or from boughs above their heads, or perhaps from the boles of the trees, but Treebeard did not stop or turn his head to either side. They had been going for a long while. Pippin had tried to keep the count. Pippin had tried to keep count of the Ent strides, but had failed, getting lost at about 3,000, when Treebeard began to slacken his pace. Damn, he counted to 3,000 without getting lost? Impressive. Impressive. I could not focus on counting for that long. That would be a lot of counting. Suddenly he stopped, put the hobbits down, and raised his curled hands to his mouth so that they made a great hollow tube. Then he blew, or called through them, a great whoom. Sorry. Whoom. Whoo. I'm trying to decide how to do this sound. It's got to be like a whoom. Whoom. Rang out like a deep-throated horn in the woods and seemed to echo from the trees. Far off, there came from several directions a similar whoom, whoom, whoom. Some things you do when you make voices and read is a little awkward and like singing. It was not an echo, but an answer. Treebeard now perched Merry and Pippin on his shoulders and strode on again, every now and then sending out another horn call, and each time the answers came louder and nearer. In this way they came at last to what looked like an impenetrable wall of dark evergreen trees of a kind that the hobbits had never seen before. They branched out right from the roots and were densely clad in dark glossy leaves like thornless holly, and bore many stiff upright flower spikes with large shining olive-colored buds. Turning to the left and skirting this huge hedge, Treebeard came in a few strides to a narrow entrance. Through it, a worn path passed and dived suddenly down a long, steep slope. The hobbits saw that they were descending into a great dingle, almost round as a bowl, very wide and deep, crowned at the rim with a high, dark evergreen hedge. It was smooth and grass-clad inside. There were no trees except 3 very tall and beautiful silver birches that stood at the bottom of the bowl. 2 other paths led down into the dingle, from the west and from the east. The dingle. What is a dingle in the context of a bowl of trees? I don't know. Okay. Several Ents had already arrived. More were coming in down the other paths, and some were now following Treebeard. As they drew near, the hobbits gazed at them. They had expected to see a number of creatures as much like Treebeard as one hobbit is like another, at any rate to a stranger's eye, and they were very much surprised to see nothing of the kind. The Ents were as different from one another as tree from trees. Some as different as one tree from another of the same name, but quite different growth and history, and some as different as one tree kind from another, as birch from beech, oak from fir. There were a few older Ents, bearded and gnarled like hale but ancient trees, though none looked as ancient as Treebeard. And there were tall, strong Ents, clean-limbed and smooth-skinned like forest trees in their prime. But there were no young Ents, no saplings. Altogether, there were about 24 standing on the wide grassy floor of the dingle, and as many more were marching in. At first, Merry and Pippin were struck chiefly by the variety that they saw, the many shapes and colors, the differences in girth and height, and length of leg and arm, and in the number of toes, and fingers, anything from 3 to 9. A few seemed more or less related to Treebeard, and reminded them of beech trees or oaks. But there were other kinds. Some recalled the chestnut. Brown-skinned Ents with large splay-fingered hands and short, thick legs. Some recalled the ash, tall, straight, gray ants, with many-fingered hands and long legs, and some the fir, the tallest ants, and others the birch, the rowan, and the linden. But when the ants all gathered round Treebeard, bowing their heads slightly, murmuring in their slow musical voices, and looking long and intently at the strangers, then the hobbits saw that they were all of the same kindred, and all had the same eyes, not all so old or so deep as Treebeard's, but all with the same slow, steady, thoughtful expression, and the same green flicker. Love them Ents. Love them Ents. We love them Ents. So much variety, So much variety. As soon as the whole company was assembled, standing in a wide circle around Treebeard, a curious and unintelligible conversation began. The ants began to murmur slowly. First one joined, and then another, till they were all chanting together in a long rising and falling rhythm, now louder on one side of the ring, now dying away there and rising to a great boom on the other side, though he could not catch or understand any of the words. He supposed the language was Entish. Pippin found the sound very pleasant to listen to at first, but gradually his attention wavered. After a long time, and the chant showed no signs of slackening, he found himself wondering, since Entish was such a unhasty language, whether they had yet gotten further than good morning, and if Treebeard was to call the roll, how many days it would take to sing all their names. I wonder what the Entish is for yes or no. Fuck, the bad voice. Did that wrong. I wonder what the Entish is for yes or no, he thought. He yawned. Short trees, happy trees, tall trees, angry trees. Yeah, we can make a whole nursery rhyme about it. Treebeard was immediately aware of him.
Hey, my Pippin, he said,
and the other Ents all stopped their chant.
You are a hasty folk, I was forgetting. And anyway, it is wearisome listening to a speech you do not understand. You may get down now. I've told your names to the Entmoot, and they have seen you, and they have agreed that you are not orcs, and that a new line shall be put in the old lists. We have got no further yet, but that is quick work for an Entmoot. You and Mary can stroll about in the dingle if you like. There is a well of good water if you need refreshing. Away yonder in the north bank there are still some words to speak before the moot really begins. I will come and see you again, and tell you how things are going.
Starting to get to me a little bit. Ent voice is starting to get to me a little bit. All right. I got tea with honey, Annie. I think it's helping. A little less phlegmy, I wonder if I'm supposed to warm it up. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. He put the hobbits down. Before they walked away, they bowed low. This feat seemed to amuse the Ents very much, to judge by the tone of their murmurs and the flicker of their eyes. But they soon turned back to their own business. Merry and Pippin climbed up the path that came in from the west, and looked through the opening in the great hedge. Long tree-clad slopes rose from the lip of the dingle. And away beyond them, above the fir trees of the farthest ridge, there were above the fir trees of the farthest ridge, there rose, sharp and white, the peak of a high mountain. Southwards, to their left, they could see the forest falling away down into the gray distance. There, far away, there was a pale green glimmer. There was a pale green glimmer that Mary guessed to be a glimpse of the plains of Rohan.
Warm up.
I don't know.
Yes, the warm up.
Well, my voice does not last long when I'm doing end voices, so I don't know if warming up's a good idea.
I wonder where Isengard is, said Pippin. I don't know quite where we are, said Mary, but that peak is probably Mithridras, and as far as I can remember, the ring of Isengard lies in a fork, or a deep cleft at the end of the mountains. It is probably down behind this great ridge. There seems to be a smoke or haze over there, left of the peak, don't you think? What is Isengard like? Said Pippin. I wonder if Ents can do about it. I wonder what Ents can do about it anyway. So do I. So do I, said Mary. Here you gargle salt water for 15 to 20 seconds. Warm tea is good.
Gotta gargle salt water. Goodness gracious me. Okay.
All right. So do I, said Mary. Isengard is a sort of ring of rocks or hills, I think, with a flat space inside, and an island or pillar of rock in the middle called Orthanc. Saruman has a tower on it. There is a gate, perhaps more than one, in the encircling wall, and I believe there is a stream running through it. It comes out of the mountains and flows on across the gap of Rohan. It does not seem the sort of place for Ents to tackle, but I have an old feeling that these Ents, somehow I don't think they are quite as safe and, well, funny as they seem. They seem slow, queer, and patient.
Yeah, they gotta be queer. There's no more Ent wives, you know?
Sorry. Almost sad. And yet I believe they could be roused, if that happened. I would rather not be on the other side. Yes, said Pippin. I know what you mean. There might be all the difference between an old crow sitting and thoughtfully chewing, and a bull charging, and the change might come suddenly. I wonder if Treebeard will rouse them. I'm sure he means to try, but they don't like being roused. Treebeard got roused himself last night, then bottled it up again. The hobbits turned back. The voices of the Ents were still rising and falling in their the voices of the Ents were still rising and falling in their conclave. The sun had now risen high enough to look over the edge. The sun had now risen high enough to look over the high edge. It gleamed on the tops of the birches and lit the northward side of the dingle with a cold yellow light. There they saw a little glittering fountain. They walked along the rim of the great bull at the feet of the evergreens. It was pleasant to feel cool grass about their toes again, and not to be in a hurry. Okay, sorry, I've read that wrong. It was pleasant to feel cool grass about their toes again, and not to be in a hurry. And then they climbed down to the gushing water. They drank a little, a clean, cold, sharp draught, and sat down on a mossy stone, watching the patches of sun on the grass and the shadows of the sailing clouds passing over the floor of the dingle. The dingle. That's a hard word for me to say without chuckling to myself. Mature. The murmur of the Ents went on. It seemed a very strange and remote place, outside their world and far from everything that had ever happened to them. A great longing came over them for the faces and voices of their companions, especially for Frodo and Sam, and for Strider.
At last there came a pause in the Ent voices, and looking up, they saw Treebeard coming towards them, with another Ent at his side.
Here I am again, said Treebeard. Are you getting weary or feeling impatient, eh? Well, I am afraid that you must not get impatient yet. We have finished the first stage now, but I have still got to explain things again to those that live a long way off, far from Isengard, and those that I could not get round to before the moot. And after that we shall have to decide what to do. However, deciding what to do does not take Ents so long as going over all the facts and events that they have to make up their minds about. Still, it is no use denying we shall be here a long time yet, a couple of days very likely. So I have brought you a companion. He has an Ent house nearby. Regalad is his elvish name. He says he has already made up his mind and does not need to remain at the moot.
How nice! They had a place to stay, while these Ents talk for literally days.
He is the nearest thing among us to a hasty Ent. You ought to get on together. Goodbye.
Treebeard turned and left them. Regalad stood for some time, surveying the hobbits solemnly, and they looked at him, wondering when he would show any signs of hastiness. He was tall and seemed to be one of the younger Ents. He had smooth, shining skin on his arms and legs. His lips were ruddy and his hair was gray-green. He could bend and sway like a slender tree in the wind. At last he spoke. His voice, though resonant, was higher and clearer than Treebeard's. Okay. Well, you missed. Well, they did stay in Treebeard's house, didn't? I'm pretty sure. So they did. We did. There was a gigantic table. There was a bed that he doesn't sleep in because he stands when he sleeps in the rain, and he has like gigantic jars of liquid in his home. This is our second Ent home we get to experience. Very exciting. Okay, so
Treebeard sounds, my friends, let us go for a walk, he said. I am Regalad. That is Quickbeam in your language, but it is only a name, of course. They have called me that ever since I said yes to an elder Ent before he had finished his question. I also drink quickly and go out while some are still wetting their beards. Come with me.
He reached down 2 shapely arms and gave a long fingered hand and gave a long fingered hand to each of the hobbits. All that day they walked about in the woods with him, singing and laughing, for Quickbeam often laughed. He laughed if the sun came out from behind a cloud. He laughed if they came upon a stream or a spring. Then he stooped and splashed his feet and head with water. He laughed sometimes at some sound or whisper in the trees. Whenever he saw a rowan tree, he halted. Whenever he saw a rowan tree, he halted a while, with his arms stretched out, and sang and swayed as he sang. At nightfall, he brought them to his Ent house, nothing more than a mossy stone set upon turves under a green bank. Rowan trees grew in a circle about it, and there was water, as in all Ent houses, a spring bubbling. a spring bubbling out from the bank. They talked for a while as darkness fell on the forest. Not far away, the voices of the Entmoot could be heard still going on, but now they seemed deeper and less leisurely, and every now and again one great voice would rise in a high and quickening music, while all the others died away. But beside them, Bregalad spoke gently in their own tongue, almost whispering, and they learned that he belonged to Skinbark's people, and the country where they had lived had been ravaged. That seemed to the hobbits quite enough to explain his hastiness, at least in the matter of orcs. Less swanky, more swampy. Yes, not very swanky, very swampy, as plants tend to be, I would say. All right.
There were rowan trees in my home,
He said softly and sadly. Sadly, Will.
There were rowan trees in my home,
said Bregalad. Soft, but happiness was the theme of his voice that I was trying to use to define his character. Oops, said Bregalad, softly and sadly.
Rowan trees that took root when I was in Enting many years ago, in the quiet of the world. The oldest were planted by the Ents to try and please the Entwives. They looked at them and smiled and said that they knew where whiter blossom and richer fruit were growing. Yet there are no trees of all that race, the people of the rose, that are so beautiful to me. And these trees grew and grew, till the shadow of each was like a green hall, and their red berries in the autumn were a burden, and a beauty and a wonder. Birds used to flock there. I like birds, even when they chatter, and the rowan has enough and to spare. But the birds became unfriendly and greedy, and tore at the trees, and threw the fruit down, and did not eat it. Then orcs came with axes, and cut down my trees. I came and called them by the long names, but they did not quiver. They did not hear or answer. They lay dead.
Sad. Very sad. Oh, fuck! There's a song.
O farne lesi mista carnimirie, how rowan fair upon your hair, how white the blossom lay. O rowan mine.
Fuck me in my ass. Sorry for any children in the chat.
O rowan mine, I saw you shine upon a summer's day. Your rind so bright, your leaves so light, your voice so cool and soft. Upon your head, how golden red, the crown you bore aloft. The crown you bore aloft.
You are not blessed. I mean, yes, you are. You're welcome for this really good singing that I'm doing.
O rowan dead, upon your head, your hair is dry and grey. Your crown is spilled, your voice is stilled, forever and a day. O oro fane, la semista, carnimitirie.
Wow, thank you, Uthang. I don't know if I said your name right, Uthang. Thank you. I'm out of tune, but I do appreciate that. I appreciate that. Nobody, I will say, so far nobody seems to hate my singing as much as I do. So, at least if they do, they aren't saying it. The hobbits fell asleep to the sound of the soft singing of Bregalad, that seemed to lament in many tongues of the fall tree. Okay, wait, let me read that again. The hobbits fell asleep to the sound of the soft singing of Bregalad, that seemed to lament in many tongues the fall of trees that he had loved. Sad. Sad. Oh. The next day they spent also in his company, but they did not go far from his house. Most of the time they sat silent under the shelter of the bank. Most of the time they sat silent under the shelter of the bank, for the wind was colder and the clouds closer and grayer. There was little sunshine, and in the distance the voices of the ants at the moot still rose and fell, sometimes loud and strong, sometimes low and sad, sometimes quickening, sometimes slow and solemn as a dirge. A second night came, and still the ants held conclave under hurrying clouds and fitful stars. Agreed. Yes, you do like my singing more than me, but I'm not convinced that it isn't because you're all sadists and you just like to watch me suffer. I'm just kidding. You guys, I'm sure you're all nice and I just sound beautiful. It's probably true. I'm just a beautiful singing voice that I got. Hey, what can I say? You know, I sound like a fucking an angel, you know? My goodness. Okay. The third day broke, bleak and windy. At sunrise, the ants' voices rose to a great clamor and then died down again. As the morning wore on, the wind fell, and the air grew heavy with expectancy. The hobbits could see that Bregalad was now listening intently, although to them, down in the dell of his end house, the sound of the moot was faint. The afternoon came, and the sun, going west towards the mountains, sent out long yellow beams between the cracks and fissures of the clouds. Suddenly they were aware that everything was very quiet. The whole forest stood in listening silence. Of course, the ant voices had stopped. But what did that mean? Bregalad was standing up, erect and tense, looking back northwards towards Derendingle. Then, with a crash, came a great ringing shout. Then, with a crash, came a great ringing shout. Roomwa, roomwa. Rahoom, raw. Trying to decide how to do that. The trees quivered and bent as if a gust had struck them. There was another pause, and then a marching music began like solemn drums, and above the rolling beats and booms, there welled voices singing high and strong. We come with roll of drum. Da-room, da-room, da-room. The ants were coming. Ever nearer and louder rose their song. We come with horn and drum. Na-room, 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 na-room. Bregalag. Such interesting creatures, these frickin' ants, am I right? Oh my goodness. Bregalad picked up the hobbits and strode from his house. Before long, they saw the marching line approaching. The ants were swinging along with great strides down the slope towards them. Treebeard was at their head, and some 50 followers were behind him, 2 abreast, keeping step with their feet and bending time with their hands upon their flanks. As they drew near, the flash and flicker of their eyes could be seen. Whoom,
Here we come, with a boom. Here we come at last.
At last, he knew they were waiting for him, called Treebeard when he caught sight of Regalad and the hobbits.
Come, join the moot. We are off. We are off to Isengard. To Isengard.
The Ents cried in many voices,
To Isengard.
and now they're singing again. Okay. It does seem in character for the Ents to be sing-songy. I feel like it fits, Though it's like, of course the hobbits sing. Oh, of course the elves sing. Oh, of course the Ents sing. Oh, of course the humans sing. Oh, of course the dwarves sing. Oh, everyone sings. I want the stiff, no personality race that doesn't want to sing ever. Oh, the orcs. The orcs do not sing.
To Isengard, through Isengard, be ringed and barred with doors of stone. Though Isengard be strong as hard, as cold as stone, and as bare as bone, I
have to improvise this shit as I go.
We go to war, to hew the stone, to break the door, for bowl and bow are burning now. The furnace roars as we go to war, the land of gloom with tramp of doom, with roll of drum, we come to Isengard with doom, we come with doom, we come with doom, we come.
Damn, dude. It took a long time to decide, and then they're all just like, we're gonna kill everything in Isengard! Sorry, I shouldn't have yelled into the mic like that, my bad. Sorry. They're just like talk for 3 days and then it's like sprint to Isengard and destroy it. My goodness. What a bunch of creatures, So they sang as they marched southwards. Okay. Honey tea seems to be working. Regalad, his eyes shining, swung into line behind Treebeard. The old Ent now took the hobbits back and set them on his shoulders again, and so they rode proudly at the head of the singing company with beating hearts and heads held high. Though they had expected something to happen eventually, they were amazed at the change that had come over the Ents. It seemed now as sudden as the bursting of a flood that had long been held back by a dike. The Ents made up their minds rather quickly after all, didn't they? Pepin ventured to say after some time. Then for a moment the singing paused, and only the beating of hands and feet was heard.
Quickly,
said Treebeard.
Yes, indeed. Quicker than I had expected. Indeed, I have not seen them roused like this for many an age. We Ents do not like being roused. And we are never roused unless it is clear to us that our trees and our lives are in great danger. That has not happened in this forest since the wars of Sauron and the men of the sea. It is the orc work, the wanton hewing rorum, without even the bad excuse of feeding the fires, that has so angered us, and the treachery of a neighbor who should have helped us. Wizards ought to know better. They do know better. There is no curse in Elvish, Entish, or the tongues of men bad enough for such treachery. Down with let me say that. Down with Saruman.
Will you really be able to break the doors of Isengard? Asked Mary.
Well, we could, you know. You do not know, perhaps, how strong we are. Maybe you have heard of trolls. They are mighty strong. But trolls are only counterfeits made by the enemy in the great darkness, in mockery of Ents, as orcs were of elves. We are stronger than trolls. We are made of the bones of the earth. We can split stone like the roots of trees, only quicker, far quicker, if our minds are roused. If we are not hewn down or destroyed by fire or blast of sorcery, we could split Isengard into splinters and crack its walls into rubble.
Dude. As some cocky Ents, they're like, we destroy everything. Sick, bro. Sick.
But Saruman will try to stop you, won't he? Oh, yes. That is so. I have not forgotten it. Indeed, I have thought long about it. But you see, many of the Ents are younger than I am, by many lives of trees. They are all roused now, and their mind is all on one thing, breaking Isengard. But they will start thinking again before long. They will cool down a little when we take our evening drink. What a thirst we shall have! But let them march now and sing. We have a long way to go, and there is time ahead for thought. It is something to have started.
Woo. And that's the other thing about Treebeard, is everything he says has to be at least one paragraph. He doesn't just say one sentence, he says a paragraph and maybe two. Every time he speaks. Treebeard marched on, singing with the others for a while, but after a time his voice died to a murmur and fell silent again. Pippin could see that his old brow was wrinkled and knotted. At last he looked up, and Pippin could see a sad look in his eyes, but not sad, but not unhappy. There was a light in them, as if the green flame had sunk deeper into the dark wells of his thought. Okay, now I'm starting to feel this phlegminess. Maybe I need my tea to be warmer.
Of course, it is likely enough, my friends, he said slowly. Likely that we are going to our doom, the last march of the Ents. But if we stayed at home and did nothing, doom would find us anyway, sooner or later. That thought has long been growing in our hearts, and that is why we are marching now. It was not a hasty resolve. Now at least the last march of the Ents may be worth a song.
He sighed.
I,
What does an Ent sighing sound like? Ah.
may we help the other peoples before we pass away. Still, I should have liked to see the songs come true about the Entwives. I should dearly have liked to see Fimbrethil again. But there, my friends, songs, like trees, bear fruit only in their own time and their own way, and sometimes they are with it untimely. The Ents went striding on at a great pace. They had descended into a long fold of the land that fell away southward. Now they began to climb up and up onto the high western ridge. The woods fell away. The woods fell away, and they came to a scattered group of birch. The woods fell away, and they came to a scattered group. I'm reading too fast. I will try to boil the tea next. I don't know. I will warm the tea up. It's literally just the cheap tea. Can you update us about what happened to the Entwives? You need to go back and listen to it. No, okay, I'm about done. I will tell you what happened with the Entwives once I finish the chapter. There's like literally a paragraph and a couple sentences. The woods fell away, and they came to scattered groups of birch, and then to bare slopes where only a few gaunt pine trees grew. The sun sank behind the dark hill back in front. Gray dusk fell. Pippin looked behind. The number of Ents had grown, or what was happening, where the dim bare slopes that they had crossed should lie. He thought he saw groves of trees, but they were moving. Could it be that the trees of Fangorn were awake, and the forest was rising, marching over the hills to war? He rubbed his eyes, wondering if sleep and shadow had deceived him. But the great gray shapes moved steadily onward. There was a noise, like wind in many branches. The Ents were drawing near the crest of the ridge now. And all song had ceased. Night fell, and there was silence. Nothing was to be heard, save a faint quiver of the earth beneath the feet of the Ents, and a rustle, the shade of a whisper, as of many drifting leaves. At last they stood upon the summit, and looked down into a dark pit. The great cleft at the end of the mountains, Nan Kuranir, the valley of Saruman. Nigh lies. Oh, stupid. Night lies over Isengard. Should I say that again? Night lies over Isengard, said Treebeard. Sometimes I question my fucking voice. All right, that's it. That is the chapter. Woo! Quite a long chapter, that was. Quite a long chapter. The Entwives. They lost the Entwives. They lost them. They just lost them, you know. They don't know what happened to the Entwives. The Ents and the Entwives had different preferences in landscape and home, or where they wanted to be, I guess. So the Ents had their places that they were, and then the Entwives had places that they were, and then somehow in some war
something happened. The forest got burned up, and the Entwives all just disappeared. And they went around searching for the Entwives. You know, they went around looking for the Entwives, and they couldn't find them. They couldn't find the Entwives. No, lost is not a euphemism. They literally lost them. They don't know. They're like, I don't know. They lost them. The hobbits were like, oh, they're dead. That's so sad. And then Treebeard was like,
I did not say died. I said lost.
so he got like defensive about it too. You know, could be that the Ents are in denial that all the ladies are dead. That would be very tragic. But no, lost. They were lost. They're just gone. The Entwives are just like, they're gone somewhere. They lost them. Yeah, who knows where the Entwives went? They're just gone, you know? Like, oh my goodness gracious. All right, next chapter, chapter 5, the White Rider. I wonder who that could be referencing. There's Gimli, back to the trio of the dudes, the dude trio, the epic fighting trio. You know, everyone's favorite trio of fantasy warriors. You know. All right, well, we're gonna call it there for sure. I'll give myself a like. You guys should give me a like too. Like this video if you liked Treebeard. Like this video if you liked my singing. So if I don't get 10 likes, I'm going to assume you all hate it. I'm just kidding. I don't have 10 viewers. Okay. Yeah, we're going to call it there. Thank you so much for watching, folks. The story of the Entwives, the Ent and the Entwives, and their long council, the Entmoot, where they sat there and sang at each other for 3 days just to decide if they wanted to destroy Isengard. And then they did. And they were like, all right, let's go. And now they're literally running at Isengard full speed. And next chapter, you know, we'll go back to the trio. Okay, I'm gonna end it. Goodbye. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm going to end the stream. Goodbye. Farewell.